Welcome everybody to today's tutorial video. My name is Scott Macmillan. I'm the project lead for the IHSS Benchmark Dashboard. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to extract your data from Omnigo ReportExec so you can then take that data and upload it into the Benchmark Dashboard. Now, before we get started, we're just going to do a quick recap for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with the Benchmark Dashboard project, so you understand what data is actually being asked for of you, so you know what to pull from your system. What you're seeing here is a sample data set that is laid out in the format required to upload into the Benchmark Dashboard. It's laid out in columns and rows, and on the top, the columns will represent the 8 data fields that the Benchmark Dashboard is asking for from you and your reporting system. So we start in the top column here. We've got the healthcare facility name, then the report number, then the incident category, then we've got the incident date, so the date when the incident occurred, the time that the incident occurred. Then we want to know where in the healthcare facility the incident occurred, particularly at the department, unit, and area level. Then there's the workplace violence typology. This is based off of the definition provided by the IHSS in the category framework for those 5 typologies. And then law enforcement involved. This refers to incidences where you had to call an external law enforcement agency to come to your facility to support and assist you in managing that particular incident. You may or may not capture these 2 particular piece of information within your Omnigo ReportExec. If you don't, then obviously you have no data to provide for that, which is fine. So I just want to point out that the data needs to be formatted in such a way that each row represents a single incident. And that is because we want to be able to do counts and run benchmarks on all of the different individual categories within the IHSS. So if you notice the 2 rows that are highlighted red. If I zoom in on those, it just gives an example of how the data needs to be separated into separate rows for each of those categories. So this particular report number is actually repeated twice, and that's because this one report contains 2 categories. It contains an aggression category, and it contains a patient restraint category. This is how it needs to be laid out. Other reporting systems may not extract the data in this particular format, in which case it would need to be reformatted in Excel, of which there are other videos available to you if that is the case. However, fortunately, for those of you who are still with me here, it's because you use Omnigo ReportExec, and Omnigo ReportExec, using the 360 Analytics tool, actually does extract data in this exact format. So with that said, let's take a look at Omnigo. So this should be very familiar to you. This is the main dashboard. As soon as you log into ReportExec, it'll look something very similar to this. It may be configured slightly differently, but otherwise will look quite familiar to you. On the top, you have different options. We want the one that's modules. So you hover over that. It'll create a drop down, scroll to the bottom, and you'll want the 360 Analytics. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. That is the built-in data tool within Omnigo. It's now giving you the option to either go straight to the tool itself or go to where your saved reports are if you have already saved this type of report. For demonstration purposes, I'm assuming that you have not created an IHSS report within Omnigo, and so we're going to go to reporting and create that. It is now loading the 360 Analytics page. You'll notice at the top, you've got main filters, which is already expanded for you. And that gives you some options on how you can filter the data for your report. We request as much data as you're willing to provide from as many facilities that you're willing to provide for. So you really don't need to filter any of this out. However, if you choose to not want to provide data for certain facilities, you would do that here under groups, because when Omnigo, groups is typically where the healthcare facility names would be listed. You can filter those out. Similarly, if you have under incident types, perhaps you have categories that you capture that are not within the IHSS framework, you do have the option to filter those out here. You don't have to, even if you do have categories that the IHSS doesn't include, you can still leave them in the report because you do have the option to ignore those or skip those in the data mapping tool, which is a later process in the upload stage. So it's possible the only filter you may need to apply is the date filter. And that's contained over here, which is date searches. When you provide data to the benchmark dashboard, you're going to provide it for the entire calendar year previous to the year that you're uploading. So you're going to be running it for 12 months, January 1st right through until the end of December 31st. In this video, I'm not going to do that for two reasons. One, in the interest of time, because the more data that you run, the longer it's going to take for this report to run, but also because my particular department only rolled out Omnigo ReportExec starting in April. So I'm going to go to the start of when we began using Omnigo, which is April 1st. And I'm just going to do for 3 months, again, just in the interest of time. So I'm going to do to the end of June. June 30th. There we are. All right, now before I hit search, we first need to identify what data fields we want to include in this report. So to do that, you want to scroll over to the left here, and there's another little option called columns here. You're going to click that to expand it. What you're seeing are two different sections. On the left is available. These are the data fields that Omnigo has chosen to make available to you to include in your report. And it's separated into 3 different groups. The 2 groups that you may need to look in is common and report specific. The benchmark dashboard is not asking for data related to people or contacts, so you don't need to look in there. And likewise, we don't need information related to vehicles. On the right-hand side is the selected. This is where you're going to actually move the data fields that you want into, because these will be the data fields that will be included in the report. So right now, as you can see, I have nothing in this side. So we're going to start moving over some data fields. So if we quickly go back to our sample data, just a quick reminder, we're looking for the facility name, report number, category, date, time, department unit area, workplace violence typology, and law enforcement. So let's start by looking under the common group first. Day of week, group. So group in Omnigo typically is where your healthcare facility names, the list of your facilities will reside. So we want that. So I'm going to click the arrow and move it over onto the right-hand side where it's now in the selected group. Go back into common. Incident types, absolutely. We want incident types. Move that over. Location, we definitely want location. And now there are some sort of date options. You've got this record date here and record time. That refers to the date when the report itself was generated. It's automatically created as soon as you open up and start a new case report or investigation report or BOLO or whatever it is. As soon as you start a report in Omnigo, it's automatically going to assign this date. That's not the preferred date for the benchmark dashboard because a report can be generated after an actual incident happened. But if that's the only date that you do have available to you, then that's the one that you can use. But we're going to keep going. Report number, that is definitely one that's contained in the sample. We want that. And what else is under here? Specific location, I don't need that because I've already got the larger location. Time of day, I think there might be a better one. So I'm going to actually hold off and we're going to now look under the report specific. Scroll down a little bit. Now we start getting into, we've got incident discovered time. So this would be the date that the incident was discovered, the time that it was discovered. We've got incident occurred end date, incident occurred end time, incident occurred start. This is the one that I'm going to use because this is the one that represents when the incident itself actually occurred. So I'm going to move that over there. Now, you'll notice that underneath that, if we scroll back down, there's an incident occurred start time. I'm going to move that over, but you'll actually see in a moment that that's not actually required. Now, the only thing that's missing is workplace violence typology and police involved. There is a checkbox on the main info page of case report within Omnigo called police involved. Unfortunately, however, that particular data field is not available to you in 360 Analytics. It's not listed anywhere over here. At least not in the version that I'm using, which is 2023.2.7. If you are using a more recent version, it is possible that more data fields are available to you, and police involved might be one of those. That would certainly be the one that you would want to use. But I do believe that there is another field that is called external file numbers. This is a free text field on the main info page of the case report that my department, when we configured Omnigo, when we first rolled it out, we chose to relabel as police file numbers. So that's the closest thing that I have available to me, and that's the one that I'm going to use to represent if police were involved. Okay, so we've got our healthcare facility, incident types, location, report number, police involved, incident start, date, and time. The only thing missing now is workplace violence typology. I can tell you that workplace violence typology is not currently a default data field within Omnigo ReportExec. So if you capture workplace violence typology, like my department does, it's probably because you've repurposed an existing drop-down field for that purpose. And that's exactly what my program has done. So it's not under here. Let's look under report specific. And you'll notice that there's nothing under W for workplace violence typology. That's because it is actually captured under incident escalation. So I'm going to move that over. Now, in the case report main info page, it does label it as workplace violence typology. Unfortunately, however, not all of the custom labels that are applied in Omnigo ReportExec will carry over into the actual 360 Analytics. But I know that incident escalation actually is workplace violence typology, so that's why I'm going to include that. So now we've got all of the data fields that are required, and we can now search. So we will run this report. And now the report is run, and we can see that there's a total of 124, which refers to 124 rows of data in this particular report. And we just do a quick check, and we've got a report number that we want, the incident types, the location, we've got our facility or group, we've got the incident occurred start date, the incident occurred start time, external law enforcement, and incident escalation, which is actually workplace violence typology, because we've relabeled it. And you can see that down here because we have type 1, which is one of the workplace violence typologies. So it's got all the data fields that we need, laid out in exactly the format that we want, which is each row represents an incident type, which is excellent. We are now ready to export this into Excel. So we're going to go over here under export options. We're going to click on that, and we're going to click on export to Excel. It may take longer when you're running an entire year's worth of data to export this, but just be patient and it will work. And we get a little pop-up over here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the link that's going to allow me to actually open up this Excel file. And there we are. So a couple of things I will point out. When you export data using the 360 Analytics within Omnigo ReportExec, you will have to do a couple of minor actions to kind of clean it up a little bit. First off is you'll notice in row 2, there's this giant merged cell which contains the total number of our reports. We do not need that for the benchmark dashboard. And in fact, keeping it in here will actually cause problems because it's a merged cell. So we are going to simply highlight it and we're going to delete it. You may also find that if you have confidential reports that were generated in the year that you're running your report, you may also have another merged row in row 3 underneath that merged row giving you the totals that will tell you how many reports were confidential. You will want to go ahead and also delete that. Basically delete any merged cells. We only want the data that we need. So I also know that if we scroll to the bottom, we'll find that once again it's repeated here where they give us the total. So we're going to highlight that and we're going to delete that as well. And we'll go back up to the top. Now, I just want to point out as well, we've got the incident occurred start date, which is listed here, and you can see it's represented as a date. And then we've got the incident occurred start time, which is here. But funny enough, Omnigo does something a little weird, which is actually beneficial, I find. In the date, it actually includes the time as well. So knowing that, I know that I don't actually need to include the separate data field called start time because the time is included in the date one as well. Not the end of the world if we do keep it in there. Either way, the benchmark dashboard will be able to recognize and be able to separate those. But just thought I'd point that out for you folks in the future. So now that our data is ready, we've removed any rows that we don't need. We can now save this, and this will be the data set that you will use to upload into the benchmark dashboard. But one more thing that you might notice is there's actually 3 tabs on the bottom here. Whenever you export from Omnigo, it adds these other 2 tabs called main filter and grid filters. We don't need either one of those, so you can delete those if you want right now. Or if you choose to leave them in, just know that when you upload this file into the benchmark dashboard, it will ask you which tab contains the data that you want to actually work with. You just need to know that it would be the tab entitled results. So not a huge inconvenience, but nonetheless, you do have the option if you want to simply delete these right now before you save this. That way you only have one tab that actually has your data. So again, you can now save this, and this will be the data set that you will then upload into the benchmark dashboard, which will allow you to carry on with the next phases and steps in uploading your data. Thank you very much, folks. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to the IHSS or myself. Have a great day and good luck.